So I have the office market. So nationally, office market has garnered a lot of attention, and it's mostly due to the exposure that financial markets have in office, and it's mostly in the inner cities and through REITs. And so some of these inner cities, they're seeing vacancy rates of upwards of 50%. That's pulled up the national vacancy rates on office to 18.9%. Locally, we've withstood very, very well. Last year, we were at 3.01%. It has gone up. We're at 5.12% right now. That's about a 70% increase. But really, we're talking such low numbers that it's not a huge issue. And 5% is still a healthy market. Additional lease data, what we've got here is $38 a square foot triple net, and any of the lease rates that you're going to hear in the presentations are going to be triple net equivalent lease rates. So the highest in the market that we've had is $38 a square foot. Now, what's interesting about that is that was gray shell space, and if you assume that it's going to take another $150 a square foot to finish out at today's interest rates, you're probably looking at at least another $10 a square foot being amortized on top of that. Then you add in the triple net expenses that we have here locally, 7 to 9%, especially in newer product like that is, and you know you're well over $50 a square foot for your all-in total. The lowest on the market is $10 a square foot that we saw. That was a little bit of an anomaly that had some functional obsolescence with it. Another key point is, you know, 147 days on the market. So if you have office space for lease, it's going to take you some time. Average asking rents right now are $22 a square foot. Okay, so these building office stats are, just realize that these also include Big Sky. Everyone knows that Big Sky building up there is a lot more expensive. So as far as number of sales, we're down quite a bit, 41%. That's to be expected with where interest rates are right now. These again, those average rates include Big Sky. Next slide gives us a little bit better understanding where we're headed or what we saw this past year. The highest we saw was $934 a square foot. Now, that wasn't a true office space. That was actually an office space overlooking Main Street here in town. So that was pseudo-residential in there, a little bit of an anomaly. The lowest we had was an office space out at Four Corners at $154 a square foot. The average sales days on the market for sales were 134 days. I think what you're going to see here under the Bozeman average asking, that probably comes more in line with what you're all expecting, just under $400 a square foot. Okay, so this next slide is interesting. It probably gives the best perspective on what's going on in the office market. It's the office pipeline. So we see that we've got 250,000 square feet of office in the market, or office being constructed right now. That gives a little bit of a misleading, that's a little bit misleading how it's showing that a little bit over 180,000 square feet of that is spoken for, because 3 of the users that are pre-leased or pre-sold to are taking that most of that number up. So St. Vincent's, which is building about a 37,000 square foot addition, or actually it's not addition, they're repurposing part of the mall. That accounts for 37,000 square feet. Industry is in there. Industry, if you don't know what that is, that's that building that you may have noticed in Innovation Campus over off of College, and it's a tilt-up concrete building. It seems like it's come to a standstill. That company is actually a co-work office space. So that's the one that's a little bit misleading, because that stuff, even though they're releasing it from their landlord, they're going to be in turn releasing that space out because that's their business model. Then Aurora is also in the Innovation Campus. And Aurora's got a 70,000 square foot building, and 30,000 of that approximately is being dedicated to office. So those three users are taking up a good portion of that. But then once you back out the industry, you know, we're going to have well over 150,000 square feet of office coming on the market, which isn't a lot, and I doubt the industry stuff is going, this condition it's in right now, I don't think it's going to be hitting the market for some time. So some of that will slide over to basically where some of the permitting projects are right now. That number is just a little bit over 50,000, not anything substantial. What I think what we're going to see is in the planning area, I think a lot of those projects are going either delayed or canceled altogether. The office market isn't a favorite of banks right now, and where interest rates are, it's hard to make that pencil, and with Bozeman's construction prices. So, excuse me, what we've seen with COVID, going back to COVID has disrupted what we would typically look for demand predictors, and that's population growth. But the evolution of remote work is changing that up. So it's just because you have population growth, you can't rely on the old standard of a certain amount of that going to office, just because so many of the people, and we'll see that in a slide coming up, that are moving here and they're not necessarily working from an office environment. So that's one of the things. The other thing is companies, with the evolution of remote work, once again, they're reassessing their space needs. And so many of those companies are subletting any extra space that they have as they've let people work from home or let people work from home for a certain number of days per week. So that falls in line nationally with what we're seeing here locally. Just in the last 2 months, we've had 3 significant companies here locally ask us to handle or engage us to handle their sublets. Okay, as far, again, going back to the interest rates, that is obviously impacting us in a big way as far as activity on sales, because if you have a mortgage that you had previously done 3, 5, 7 years ago, you're at 3.5% interest rate or 4%. Obviously, there's going to be some pain when you refinance and you're over 7%. So what we anticipate is that there's going to be a little bit of distress in the market coming up, assuming everything stays the same or possibly worsens. So we're going to see a little bit more office coming to the market. Here again is what we're talking about with the evolution of the remote office, and Montana really benefited from people moving from places such as California. I would bet that everyone in this room knows someone that moved here from California and they're working from perhaps a coffee shop or home and not necessarily an office. And then at the same time, they're taking up some housing stock and taking that out of inventory. So it kind of hits both ways there. But remote work is evolving. Companies are trying to work through this. Last May, Elon Musk got some headlines when he said it's not just a productivity thing. He said, I think it's morally wrong. Then early last month, the president probably getting calls from some inner city or some urban city mayors like New York, Washington, D.C. He asked his cabinet to aggressively execute plans for federal employees to work more in their offices this fall. So maybe we're going to see some changes there with federal employees. And then as late as last week, Amazon CEO told his workers, he said, it's probably not going to work out for you if you don't come to the office for at least 3 days a week. So all that taken into account, our vacancy rate is low, it is healthy, but it is going to increase. So therefore, we think the Bozeman office market is moving into the hyper supply phase of the market.